My husband told me he wished I had died instead of his first wife and that I'm only half the mother she was. I am considering divorce because our relationship died that day, too. My husband Nick was married to his first wife Vanessa for 5 years, and they had 2 amazing kids, Luke and Lila. Sadly, Vanessa died in an accident 11 years ago when the kids were very young. I started dating Nick 8 years ago, and we started very slowly for obvious reasons. Nick has always been a little more distant than anyone I'd ever been with, but he and the kids lost Vanessa so young that I understood it. After 3 years of dating, Nick asked me to marry him, and I moved in. I've always had a great relationship with Luke and Lila, and they were happy that I would marry their dad. I had wanted an actual wedding, nothing big, but Nick didn't want one, so we married at the courthouse with just Luke and Lila present. We had a really fast engagement, but it worked for all of us. I have loved being Luke and Lila's stepmom and officially adopted them after discovering I was pregnant with our son Casey. The kids have been so great with Casey and help out so much. Nick was wonderful during the pregnancy and had always been a loving dad and husband, but Nick has been pulling away a lot over the last few months. He's been even more distant than usual, working late nights and going away with friends almost every weekend. I've tried talking to him, but he's been impatient with me and the kids. I was pregnant in June and am now 21 weeks pregnant with a girl. The kids are excited to have a little sister, but Nick seems indifferent to everything and everyone. He's missed soccer games, Lila's birthday, doctor's appointments, etc. Casey is too young to notice, but their dad's absence hurts Luke and Lila. These kids are so good and lost their mom so young. I'm infuriated that Nick is ignoring the kids like this. Last week, I finally sat Nick down and told him that he needs to stop disappearing and be more present in our lives. We will have another child soon, and before we know it Luke and Lila will be grown up and going to college. After an hour of arguing, he screamed at me that he wished Vanessa was still alive and that I had switched places with her and died instead. He also threw in some awful comments that I need to stop pretending I'm Luke and Lila's real mom and that I'm only half the mom Vanessa was. The final straw was him saying that he never even wanted any kids with me but did it so I'd keep busy and leave him alone. I'm so beyond hurt right now. I know I'm just his second choice, but I've always tried to honor Vanessa and tell Luke and Lila how lucky they were to have her as their mom. I love all of our kids more than anything, and I'm just so heartbroken. Nick barely pays attention to Casey now and doesn't even acknowledge the pregnancy. He somewhat apologized this weekend and took all 3 kids to lunch, but he won't even look me in the eye. He seems to want to talk, but he doesn't say anything, and I'm too upset to even be near him. I'm not sure where to go from here. Honestly, I can't even be around Nick right now, and if there weren't any kids involved, I'd leave and never look back. I'm not sure if he's cheating or the thought of a 4th child is stressing him out, but I'm devastated and not sure how or why I should save this marriage besides doing it for the kids. Any advice is desperately needed right now. Update: I gave Nick a letter, and I tried to explain how hurt I was by what he said and I wasn't sure how we'd gotten to this place. I also tried to explain that I knew he was still in so much pain from Vanessa's death, and I would never try to replace her, even though I try to be understanding of his grief and, likely, depression. I didn't sugarcoat how badly hurt I was by what he said to me. I know grief is extremely complex, but it doesn't excuse telling your pregnant wife you wish she was dead. It was a hard letter to write, but I tried to put forward some kind of resolution. If he meant what he said, then we divorce as amicably as possible for the kids. If he didn't mean it and was just lashing out, then we had to get couples counseling and he needed to get back to individual therapy if he wanted to stay together. Nick took the letter and locked himself in the guest room to read it. He didn't come out until the next morning, but he told me he needed to go away for a while and think. So he packed a bag, told the kids he had a business trip, and left that afternoon. Honestly, I figured our marriage was done as soon as he left. Luke and Lila knew something was up, but I kept telling them their dad had a big project for work and would be back soon. They were both upset. Neither believed the story about Nick's trip, so I set up some emergency sessions with their therapist so they would have someone to talk with. Nick was gone for over a week. There were a few short phone calls to ask how I was and talk to the kids, but there was a lot of radio silence during that time. He came home one afternoon when Luke and Lila were still at school and said he needed to talk. I figured he was going to ask for a divorce. He told me he felt very guilty for being happy with his life and like he was dishonoring Vanessa by living this new life with me. The guilt and sadness made him want to pull away, and he hoped I'd let him, which I did. He said he didn't mean the things he said and felt ashamed after he said them, but he just wanted me to leave him so that neither of us would be hurt anymore. I expected to hear that, but it didn't make me feel better. After reading my letter, I guess it drove home how much he had hurt the kids and me, so he left to see if he could fix himself and get back on track. He admitted he'd been depressed and needed help. I told him I meant what I said in the letter and would work with him if he wanted to work through it. He was more emotional than I've ever seen him, so I believed he was sorry for what he said. So we've been in marriage counseling, and he's back in individual therapy as well. He still has a lot of guilt about Vanessa, and I'm still hurting from everything he said and did, but I feel like we're slowly making progress in rebuilding the relationship. Nick is trying to make up for the things he missed while he was checked out, and he's been great with the kids. I've been having a lot of complications with my pregnancy, but Nick has stepped up to help with everything. He's been to every doctor's appointment and has been very supportive of the pregnancy since he came back. I know he has extreme guilt from saying he never wanted Casey or the new baby, and he's been trying to make up for that. We'll all stay in therapy as long as needed, but I feel more confident about our future as a couple and a family. I won't lie and say I'm positive everything has been fixed or that his words don't still hurt, but I feel we're on the right path.